Hey, everybody, and welcome to Unmistakably You. I'm Amy.
I'm Stella.
And we are joining you from a different location tonight, which of course means that I had all kinds of tech difficulties setting up. So sorry that we're a little bit late. Also, I apologize for the screaming kids in the backyard beside us.
They're having a great time.
They really are. They really are. So for those of you who don't know Stella, she joined us last year and is just an awesome member of our team. She's our one of our assistant coordinators and our client relationship manager, and she's doing just a dynamite job. So she agreed to join me here tonight. How you doing?
Good. It's my pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Of course. We have very large glasses of red wine, which are kind of out of the frame right now, but we'll get to that a little bit later. So for any of you who join me weekly or who catch the replay, hi and welcome back. For anybody who's new, we are from Unmistakably You Wedding Coordination, and we come to you live every Wednesday at 8 o'clock to hopefully deal with some issues that you might be facing in your wedding planning. And we try to be as topical as we can be, but we understand that everybody's at a different point in their planning. So if you have questions at any point, or if you're struggling with something, don't ever hesitate to reach out. You can post a comment on this video, or you can send us a direct message or an email, amy@unmistakablyou.com. And we'll be more than happy to answer anything that you're struggling with. Tonight, we thought we'd have a little bit of fun, hopefully. And we're going to deal with wedding whoops, which is random shit that you can't possibly predict. Now, I'm not talking like completely out to lunch once in a blue moon. It's realistically never going to happen, except in an extremely fluky situation.
Yeah.
But we're talking about things that presumably you haven't planned a wedding before. And so you might encounter, but by the time you realize that it's a problem, it's maybe too late.
It's too late.
Yeah. So so off the top of your head, Stella, can you think of anything that maybe was unintentional that could have maybe been prevented had people known about it?
Yeah, I definitely would say had to schedule like rain plans, because definitely the last minute transitioning and trying to cover up speakers and if the ceremony's on one side and the reception's on another end, running back and forth, it was a lot. It also caused for the ceremony to be a little delayed, which sometimes is not a problem, but as you know, sometimes can cause challenge for the officiants and food. So yeah, that was probably the top on my list.
Yeah. And I mean, I think everybody kind of knows that you need a rain plan, but the issue is sometimes having a rain plan that you actually are okay with, and just not being in complete denial that it's going to rain. Yeah. I mean, if the rain plan is we're going to have it in the barn, then you need to make sure the barn is actually clean enough, functional. Yeah. So we've got a couple of weather related things. I mean, as much as this is sort of random stuff that you might encounter, we did kind of group things as much as we could into some categories. So the rain plan that's actually doable and that you've thought through how to implement that plan, that's definitely top of the list. But something that a lot of people don't really think about so much is wind.
That's a big one.
I find, I mean, if you have a seating chart, it becomes a sail in the wind. If you have any kind of photo display, or we were chatting with Jacqueline, hi, we miss you. We miss you. Jacqueline was with us for a couple of years and has now moved on to Ottawa, but she was mentioning a wedding she did recently was trying to have floating feathers, but in the wind, it's impossible.
It's not gonna happen. Yeah.
So thinking about wind and any outdoor elements, as well as the rain, and also thinking about if you're doing a tent wedding or any kind of outdoor wedding, the dew. Some people don't necessarily think about the impact that the dew is going to have overnight on anything you've set up the day before. So we've done weddings where the tables are just sopping wet, and we have to go out and grab towels because you can't put linens on these puddly tables.
No.
Puddly.
Kiss your place cards goodbye.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. The other thing under the weather to think about is to know your bugs. So
huge. Yeah.
We've had, I don't know if it's an extra buggy season here in Ontario this year. I don't know, but mosquitoes in the spring and wasps in the fall. Yes. So definitely be mindful of your guest comfort where that's concerned. If you're dealing with a fall wedding and any kind of outdoor food, thinking about garbage cans and receptacles far away from guests, because wasps are usually pretty brutal in the fall.
Terrible.
Yeah. Another category we wanted to chat about is transportation. Now, presumably you've planned out how you're getting from A to B. What you probably have even thought about if you're driving yourself is having your car detailed.
Yes.
But speaking from experience, you want to ask them to pay extra special attention to the door jambs on your car.
Really important.
Because that's where the grease and sludge hides. So you do not want that on the back of your white or light colored dresses. Also, we want to think about, we had this happen kind of recently where the late night food came out at the same time as the first guest shuttle left. And the bride was kind of upset because a lot of guests left on that shuttle. So part of that is, I guess, knowing your guest dynamic.
And your timing, like, I guess too, right? Yeah.
So if you're going to be upset that a bunch of guests leave and you have a ton of leftover late night food, maybe try to plan those things at different times.
Yeah, I think also knowing amounts too, like knowing, like you said, knowing your guests, knowing how much you think they're going to eat at that time and how much they're not.
We often find gross overestimations of how much people will eat late night. I know I've seen people order like 70 pizzas for a wedding count of about 120. And I'm just like, by the time you get to late night, there's maybe 60 to 70% of your guests left. That's like a pizza a person.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Kind of speaking of food service and things that are related to power, this is obviously not an issue if you are at a venue, but if you are doing any kind of a DIY event, whether it's private property, tent, whether it's maybe a barn, that's,
even a barn,
like a venue, but not necessarily a full service venue, you need to be really mindful of your power and things that people don't think about that draw a lot of power.
Damn coffee urns.
I know, coffee urns. They're the worst.
A nightmare. They are.
So in a lot of cases, your caterer will bring that to your attention or they'll brew the coffee off site. But thinking about things that suck a lot of power, also incandescent light bulbs. So these days, I mean, a lot of lights are LED, but if you have like vintage chandeliers or something, a lot of those bulbs will be incandescent. So just making sure that you're thinking about having adequate power.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and your DJ.
Yes.
To be on a separate generator without an inverter, because there goes the whole power for the whole party.
Yeah, if you're running a lot of things off of generators, just be really mindful that oftentimes you can't run a DJ off of a generator unless that generator has an inverter, because what that does is keeps the power steady so that you don't blow potentially thousands of dollars of DJ equipment. Yeah, because they will not be happy with you
at all
if you do that. If you are running things off generators, just be mindful that you probably should have some extra gas on hand, because sometimes those things suck up an awful lot more than you would think.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing kills your party faster than having your music go down because you have no power left.
In song, just everybody's jamming out and it just completely quiet. Now you're stuck with a bunch of guests that have had quite a bit of alcohol.
And speaking of alcohol, we have a couple of bar related things as well. So one, I mean, I don't have a ton of bartending experience, but I have come to realize over the years that those pour spouts don't fit on 1.5 liter bottles of spirits. So talk to your bartenders, make sure that you have the appropriate equipment for the size of bottles that you buy.
Yeah.
And make sure too that you have a conversation with them about not opening anything maybe too late in the evening. You know, if you're closing your bar at 1, don't open a brand new bottle of vodka at 12:45, because you can return anything that's unopened. So just being mindful and smart about your bar supplies.
Exactly. Yeah.
And something we come across a lot.
Make sure your bartenders clear your empties. A lot of times we come across, they have great service, bar line is moving very quickly, drinks are getting to your guests, but there are empties everywhere. So don't assume that your caterers are going to pick up your empties. It really should be, a lot of times it should be the responsibility of your bartenders. So that's something you definitely want to go over with them and make sure that they're understanding that that's part of their responsibility.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, venue related things, we've been talking an awful lot about DIY venues or private property. And that's, of course, natural because at an all-inclusive venue, a lot of these things you don't ever have to think about.
Yeah.
But there are still some things, even at all-inclusive venues, that you'll need to be mindful of, like thinking about your layout with regard to the visual elements that you will want photographed and thinking about what's behind them. Exactly. So from a cropping photography point of view, you can't necessarily crop an ugly, barn door out of the back of a cake photo.
Yeah.
So thinking about the location of your elements, and sometimes you have a little bit more leeway with that than others. You also want to think about the location of your elements for the flow of the day. But definitely thinking about that, and also being mindful of the kind of tables that you're choosing for any important or heavy elements like big dessert buffets or cake tables, for instance. Choose a good sturdy table. Please. It's completely not wedding related at all, but I actually planned a Stanley Cup party a number of years ago, and the cup guy, the gentleman who travels around with the cup and protects it, he was very, very concerned about having a good solid table for that cup to sit on. So same applies to your wedding cake.
I agree. Yeah.
Kind of venue related, but kind of gift related. Didn't know where else to put this one.
Yeah.
But something you may not have thought about is having someone in charge of your card box.
Yeah.
I know I had someone steal a card box a number of years ago. I'd cleared it out before that, but they just obviously knew there were a couple of weddings on site, and it was at a hotel. They just kind of walked in off the street, I presume, and grabbed the card box, which was mostly, or at least hopefully completely, but mostly at best empty at the time. So
and to add to that, I would say, like, have a conversation with everyone so everyone knows who's responsible for that, because I've done a wedding where the mothers are arguing about who should clear the card box. So it's a little awkward on the wedding day. And obviously it's going to make for an upset bride and groom because nobody wants to be arguing. But have that conversation and just make sure everybody knows that who's in charge of clearing the card box.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, because I had a mom come to me absolutely panicked.
Yes. Yeah.
Thinking, oh my God, someone stole the cards. And I'm like, no, I just locked them in a broom closet. Like, we're all good.
Yeah, that too causes panic when one mom sees it. There's no cards. What happened? Yeah.
And speaking of locking up those cards, if you are at a venue that has a bridal suite or an area for you to store your, purses and bags and things like that, make sure you're really clear with the venue about how long you have that suite for. We need to make sure that you have the bridal suite for the duration of the event. We recently had an experience.
It's not pleasant to be midway through reception and have to run back to clear the bride and grooms and bridal party stuff from underneath the stairs because the venue had booked the room for another party. And they were just clearing it. So please be clear with your venue on how long you have the bridal suite for.
Absolutely. Things that you can store in your bridal suite would be, your day of emergency kit. You may have soup bags from your wedding party. You may have gifts or cards to lock up. You may have an extra pair of shoes. And that's something we would recommend because, again, I'll give Jacqueline credit for this one. She brought to our attention something that I learned the hard way at a wedding a number of years ago, which is that if you take your shoes off, your feet will swell. So if it's a hot day and you're seated at your table, you may want to just slide those shoes off for a few minutes, but guess what? They're not going back on. So
No.
Maybe bring a comfy pair of flats for after dinner.
Yeah.
Hey, Victoria.
Hey, Victoria. Hey, girl.
Other attire related things. So if you take your shoes off, your feet will swell. If you have a corset back dress or if you have very, very tight shapewear, you will throw up your dinner if it's too tight. I had that happen.
Not pass out.
Yeah, exactly. I've had that happen as well. So be mindful of, obviously you want to look your best on your wedding day, but you also want to feel your best, and being able to breathe is going to help with that.
It's important. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Something else to think about, we've got a couple of just sort of random things to close off with here. Your wedding may be kid friendly. If you're inviting kids, awesome, great, but your kids may not be wedding friendly. So if you are inviting kids, maybe think about having a table full of low supervision games and puzzles and coloring for them, so that their parents can actually back and enjoy, but that you don't have kids bouncing off of your walls,
terrorizing your venue,
which makes it stressful on their parents and presumably you as well. And then just to kind of close it off with something super duper random, again, we'll credit Jacqueline with this one. We love a good vintage borrowed element, especially if it's a family heirloom. Jackie mentioned that she had a cake topper once that was painted with lead paint. So bad news. Lead is not so good when it comes in contact with food. So, we could probably go on and on about random stuff. Generally speaking, if you are working with a planner or a coordinator, hopefully these are the kinds of things that they are able to help you navigate. If you are working on your own, we would invite you to even just sit down with us for a consult, and we'll talk through some of these things. But as always, regardless of whether you are one of our couples or whether you are you're out there with another coordinator or on your own, we hope that your wedding is beautiful, that it is everything you want, and that the planning is smooth. I see some of our couples on here. Hey, Madison, how's it going? And Matthias, hello. So anyway, Stella, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
Of course, I always appreciate your insight.
Yes.
And I'm sure people are happy to not just be listening to me rambling on.
No.
All right. So everybody, happy planning. We will see you here again next week for hopefully a couple more helpful tips. And if you're looking for some more helpful stuff, we actually just finalized our fall workshop lineup today. So you can head on over to our website, unmistakably.com/workshops, and you can sign up for those workshops there. We're going to be running some promos for those in the next couple of weeks. There will be some contests, but if you want to make sure to secure your spot, hop on over there right now.
Yes, please. Thanks, guys.
We'll see you next week. Happy planning.
Happy planning, guys.